The crimson light of Velthar's twin suns cast long shadows across the obsidian war table, where the hegemony's greatest military minds had gathered. General Krixtal's mandibles clicked in amusement as he gestured toward the holographic display showing a small blue world spinning lazily in the void. "Earth," he chittered, his compound eyes gleaming with mirth. "Population, 7 billion. Military technology, primitive kinetics and basic energy weapons. Space capability, barely reaching their own moon consistently." Around the table, the assembled war leaders of 6 different species erupted in harmonious laughter. Admiral Nithara's tentacles writhed with glee, while Commander Vosek's scaled hide rippled in what passed for draconian humor. The sound echoed through the crystalline chambers of the hegemony's military headquarters on Velthar Prime. "Surely this is some sort of jest," wheezed High Marshal Kethron, his 4 arms gesturing dismissively. "The Galactic Council expects us to believe these humans destroyed the Zephyrian fleet? The same Zephyrians who held the Outer Rim for 3 centuries? General Krixtal's laughter subsided as he manipulated the hologram, zooming in on Earth's continents. "The reports claim it was accomplished with something called nuclear weapons, crude fusion devices that irradiate everything around them. Barbaric, really. Any civilized species would have developed clean antimatter weaponry centuries before achieving interstellar travel." "Perhaps," interjected Admiral Nithara, her voice carrying the melodic tones of her aquatic species, "we should examine the tactical reports more carefully. The Zephyrian 7th Fleet was not inconsiderable." Commander Vosek snorted, a sound like steam escaping from heated metal. "Tactical reports written by survivors in shock. Half of them claim the humans were using projectile weapons, actual metal projectiles, as if kinetic rounds could penetrate Zephyrian battle armor." The hologram shifted to display grainy footage from Zephyrian helmet cameras. The quality was poor, marred by static and interference, but it showed bipedal figures in primitive-looking gear engaging in what appeared to be ground combat. The assembled war leaders leaned forward, squinting at the flickering images. "Look, at them," Krixtal pointed with one of his razor-sharp claws. "No energy shields, no plasma weaponry, no enhancement suits. They're practically naked by our standards." High Marshal Kethron's multiple eyes focused on the display. "The Zephyrian ground forces outnumbered them 50-1. How could such primitives possibly—" "Mass hysteria," interrupted Admiral Nithara with certainty. "The Zephyrians panicked when faced with nuclear contamination. Their morale collapsed, and they fled rather than risk radiation poisoning. These humans simply got lucky." The council members nodded in agreement, their various forms of acknowledgement creating a symphony of clicks, hisses, and harmonic tones. The idea that a pre-spaceflight civilization could pose a genuine threat to the hegemony, which had conquered 17 star systems and subjugated dozens of species, was simply preposterous. "Very well," General Krixtal declared, his voice carrying the authority of supreme command. "We shall demonstrate proper military doctrine to these upstart mammals. The hegemony will dispatch the Crimson Fang battle group. Should be more than sufficient to pacify one backward world." The Crimson Fang? Commander Vosek's heat-sensing organs flickered with surprise. "Isn't that excessive? That's 8 dreadnoughts, 30 cruisers, and a full planetary assault division." Krixtal's mandibles spread in what passed for a grin among his species. "Excessive? My dear Vosek, this isn't about military necessity. It's about sending a message to the galaxy. When news spreads that we crushed these mighty humans with overwhelming force, it will remind everyone why the hegemony rules the stars." The assembled commanders erupted in fresh laughter, already imagining the terror that would grip potential. Rebellions throughout their territory when word spread of Earth's inevitable destruction. They would remember this moment later, when the screaming started. 3 weeks after the War Council's jovial planning session, the hegemony's Crimson Fang battle group emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Thaisara, a member of the aquatic Nithari species, commanded the fleet from the bridge of the dreadnought Void Render. Her tentacles danced across holographic controls as she reviewed the tactical situation. Preliminary scans confirm intelligence reports, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Grixmore. Primitive space infrastructure, a few orbital stations, some satellites, nothing that could threaten our vessels. Thaisara's chromatic skin shifted to pleased blue-green patterns. Any sign of their defensive fleet? Minimal, Admiral. Perhaps 24 vessels of questionable combat capability. They appear to be retreating toward their planetary defensive perimeter. Wise of them, she mused, manipulating the tactical display. Though it will merely delay the inevitable. Begin orbital bombardment protocols. Target their major population centers first. A quick shock should end their resistance before we need to deploy ground forces. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, charging the massive plasma cannons that could reduce continents to glass. But as the weapon systems powered up, something unexpected appeared on the sensors. Admiral, Lieutenant Grixmore's voice carried a note of confusion. We're detecting multiple launch signatures from the planet's surface, hundreds of them. Primitive missiles, no doubt, Thaisara dismissed. Activate point defense systems. But, as the contacts grew closer, the sensor readings became increasingly bizarre. These weren't missiles. They were moving too erratically, following flight paths that defied conventional ballistics. Some appeared to be individual life forms. Admiral, I'm reading biological signatures within those contacts. They appear to be single-occupant vehicles of some kind. Thaisara's tentacles curled with interest. Drop pods? How quaint. They're actually trying to board our vessels? Her skin shifted to amused yellow patterns. Don't they realize the vacuum of space is lethal to most oxygen-breathing species? The first wave of contacts reached the fleet's perimeter, and what happened next would be discussed in military academies for generations, assuming any hegemony academies survived to discuss it. The human drop trooper designated as Sergeant Kalen Voss had been falling for 47 minutes. His armored suit, a marvel of human engineering that the hegemony's intelligence services had completely failed to understand, was designed for exactly this type of assault. The suit's AI, which he'd nicknamed Valkyrie, provided constant updates through his neural interface. Approaching primary target, Valkyrie's synthetic voice whispered in his mind. Dreadnought-class vessel, approximately 2 kilometers in length, detecting multiple weapon emplacements and what appears to be a command structure amidships. Kalen's targeting system locked onto the alien vessel's hull. Around him, dozens of other drop troopers were conducting similar approaches to ships throughout the enemy fleet. This was humanity's first major space engagement, and they were treating it like every other impossible situation they'd faced throughout their violent history, with calculated aggression and adaptive tactics. Contact in 30 seconds, Valkyrie reported. Activating hull breach protocols. The hegemony crew aboard the Void Render watched in growing alarm as the human drop pods didn't simply impact their hull, they burrowed through it. The humans had developed shaped charges specifically designed to penetrate starship armor, and their drop troopers were essentially guided missiles with legs. Kalen's pod punched through 3 decks before coming to rest in what appeared to be a corridor. The breach charges had created a perfect entry point, and his suit's environmental systems immediately began analyzing the local atmosphere, breathable for humans, though with higher nitrogen content than Earth standard. As his pod's restraints released, Kalen stepped into the corridor, his weapon already in hand. The rifle was a hybrid design, part kinetic, part plasma, with ammunition that could adapt to different target types. The hegemony's intelligence services had been correct. About one thing, humans did still use projectile weapons. They'd simply failed to understand how terrifyingly effective those weapons had become. The first alien he encountered was a 4-armed creature that appeared to be some kind of technician. It stared at him in shock, clearly not comprehending what it was seeing. Kalen raised his weapon and fired once, The round, designed to penetrate advanced armor, passed completely through the alien's torso and embedded itself in the wall behind, where it exploded in a shower of superheated metal fragments. "Contact confirmed," he reported through his comm system. "Beginning shipboard assault." Throughout the Crimson Fang battle group, similar scenes were playing out as 200 of humanity's finest drop troopers began the process of turning the hegemony's mighty fleet into scrap metal from the inside out. Admiral Thisara's command center had transformed from a place of confident superiority into a nightmare of alarms and emergency lighting. Her tentacles thrashed through holographic displays showing impossible scenes throughout her fleet, armored humans moving through starship corridors like unstoppable forces of nature. "Report from Shadow's Edge," her communications officer called out, his voice cracking with stress. "They've lost contact with decks 4 through 7. Last transmission mentioned armored bipeds using some kind of explosive projectiles." "And the Iron Talon?" Thisara demanded. "Engineering section. Compromised. The humans have somehow disabled their main reactor. The ship is running on backup power only." The Admiral's chromatic skin had shifted to deep red, a color associated with rage and disbelief among her species. "How many of these drop troopers did they deploy?" "Sensor analysis suggests approximately 200 individuals across our entire battle group." 200? Thisara's voice rose to a shriek that resonated through the bridge. 200 primitives are crippling 43 of our finest warships? On deck 12 of the Void Render, Sergeant Kalen Voss was discovering just how unprepared the hegemony was for close-quarters combat against humans. The corridor he'd entered led to what appeared to be a barracks area, where dozens of hegemony soldiers were attempting to organize a defensive response. The aliens were impressive specimens. Some were insectoid creatures with natural armor, plating, others were reptilian beings with enhanced strength, and a few appeared to be some kind of energy-based life form. But impressive as they were, none of them had evolved on a world quite like Earth. Kalen's homeworld had spent millions of years teaching its dominant species that everything wanted to kill them. Predators, prey, weather, disease, other humans. Survival on Earth required a level of paranoid alertness and violent adaptability that no other known species had developed. As the first group of hegemony soldiers rounded the corner, Kalen was already moving. His enhanced reflexes, boosted by combat stimulants and guided by predictive AI, allowed him to process the tactical situation in milliseconds. The insectoid warriors were fast, but followed predictable attack patterns. The reptilian soldiers were strong but relied too heavily on their natural armor. The energy beings were dangerous but couldn't maintain cohesion under rapid kinetic bombardment. His weapon fired in controlled bursts, each round programmed to adapt to its specific target. Anti-chitin ammunition for the insectoids, armor-piercing, cores for the reptilians, and electromagnetic pulse rounds for the energy entities. The engagement lasted 17 seconds. When the smoke cleared, Kalen was still standing. 23 hegemony soldiers were not. "Valkyrie, update on primary objectives," he requested. "Shipboard resistance is decreasing exponentially," his AI responded. "Recommend advancing toward the bridge section. Intelligence suggests command personnel may attempt to initiate self-destruct protocols." Similar conversations were occurring throughout the fleet as human drop troopers systematically dismantled the hegemony's chain of command. The aliens had made a critical error in their assessment. They'd assumed that primitive meant ineffective. They'd failed to understand that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history becoming the most efficient killers their world had ever produced. Commander Vex Thule of the heavy cruiser Crimson Dawn found himself trapped in his own command center, watching through security feeds as a single human systematically eliminated his crew. The armored figure moved with mechanical precision, but there was something disturbingly organic about its tactics, an adaptability that no programmed system could match. Send a distress signal to Velthar Prime, he ordered his communications. Officer, I'm trying, sir, but the humans somehow disabled our long-range transmitters. How could they possibly know our ship's layout well enough to... The question died as his command center's blast doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris stepped a figure that would haunt his nightmares for the brief remainder of his life. The human's armor was scorched and dented, but still functional. Its weapon was trained on Vexthal's primary hearts. Surrender, the human said in remarkably clear hegemonic standard. Your ship is captured. Your crew is neutralized. Compliance will result in survival. Vexthal's species had surrendered exactly once in their recorded history, to the hegemony itself, after a war that had lasted 3 centuries. Looking into the human's face through its transparent visor, he understood why his ancestors had eventually chosen submission over extinction. Throughout the Crimson Fang battle group, similar scenes played out as the reality of human combat effectiveness became impossible to deny. These weren't primitive savages using crude weapons. These were apex predators equipped with technology specifically designed for killing things that were bigger, stronger, and more numerous than themselves. By the time Admiral Thisara received her first coherent status report, 37 of her 43 vessels had been either captured or disabled. The vaunted hegemony fleet had been neutralized by an enemy force that could have fit comfortably in a single shuttle bay. The emergency session of the Hegemony War Council convened in unprecedented chaos. General Krixtal's usual composure had cracked, his mandibles clicking in rapid nervous patterns as he reviewed the impossible reports streaming in from the Sol system. The holographic displays that had once shown Earth as a primitive target now displayed the scattered wreckage of the Crimson Fang battle group. 43 ships, Admiral Nathara repeated, her tentacles coiled in distress. The humans captured or destroyed 43 ships with 200 soldiers. High Marshal Ketheron's 4 arms gestured frantically at the tactical displays. The mathematics don't work. Even if we assume optimal combat efficiency, the numbers are impossible. Commander Vosek, his scaled hide pale with shock, manipulated the communication logs. We have testimony from survivors, consistent reports across multiple vessels. The humans somehow developed personal armor that can withstand our standard weapons and their projectile technology. He paused, struggling with the implications. Their bullets apparently adapt to different target types in real time. General Krixtal forced himself to focus on the strategic implications rather than the tactical impossibility. Status of surviving vessels? 6 ships managed to retreat to minimum safe distance, reported the intelligence coordinator, a spider-like being whose species specialized in information analysis. They're maintaining observation of the human fleet but avoiding engagement. Human fleet? Naithara's chromatophore patches shifted to confused purple. Intelligence reported minimal spacefaring capability. The coordinator's multiple eyes focused on different data streams simultaneously. The reports were incomplete. The humans appear to have been deliberately concealing their true technological capabilities. They have orbital installations that can manufacture and deploy drop troopers in real time, and their captured vessels are being integrated into their defensive network with disturbing efficiency. On the primary display, new footage began playing. Transmissions from the human homeworld that had somehow breached the hegemony's most secure communication protocols. The image showed a human in military dress standing before what appeared to be a planetary defense command center. I am Admiral Octavia Reyes of the Terran Defense Force, the human said, her voice carrying easily through the translation systems. This message is directed to the leadership of the organization that calls itself the Hegemony. The War Council fell silent, staring at the display with mixture of fascination and growing dread. Your recent attack on our world has been neutralized, Admiral Reyes continued. Your surviving personnel are being treated according to the Geneva Conventions, a concept your species may not understand, involving the humane treatment of prisoners. They will be returned to you along with a detailed analysis of why your assault failed. General Kriegstahl's compound eyes narrowed. Analysis? They're going to tell us how they defeated us? Your tactical doctrine assumes technological superiority. Can compensate for strategic incompetence, the human admiral explained, as if she'd heard his question. You deployed a massive fleet against a single world without proper intelligence, without understanding your enemy's capabilities, and without any contingency planning for unexpected resistance. The War Council members exchanged glances. Each of those criticisms was accurate. But your greatest error was assuming that technological development follows a linear path, Admiral Reyes continued. You classified us as primitive because we still use kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. You failed to understand that we use these technologies because they work, and because we've had centuries to perfect them. New footage began playing. Human factories producing ammunition that could analyze and adapt to alien armor in real time, drop pods equipped with AI systems that could navigate space combat autonomously, and armor that incorporated nanotechnology, capable of self-repair and environmental adaptation. Human military doctrine is based on a simple principle, Admiral Reyes explained. We assume our enemies are stronger, faster, and more numerous than we are. Therefore, we develop strategies that turn enemy advantages into vulnerabilities. Commander Vosek's heat-sensing organs detected the rising temperature of his colleagues' stress responses. She's describing asymmetric warfare doctrine taken to its logical extreme. Your large, powerful warships became traps when we put soldiers inside them, the human continued. Your superior numbers became a disadvantage when we turned your own vessels against each other. Your advanced energy weapons proved less effective than our primitive kinetics in close-quarters combat. The display shifted to show human drop troopers working alongside captured alien crew members, apparently teaching them human combat techniques. Several of the aliens seemed to be adapting quickly to human tactical concepts. We are returning. Your surviving personnel is a gesture of good faith, Admiral Reyes concluded. But understand this. Earth is no longer a target for conquest. Any future hostile action against our world or our allies will be met with escalating response. We have 43 of your finest warships, complete technical specifications for your military technology and detailed intelligence on your strategic capabilities. The transmission paused, and Admiral Reyes seemed to look directly at General Kriegstahl through the display. The next time you plan to attack humanity, remember that we are the species that conquered our own world before we reached the stars. Every creature that ever threatened us is now extinct, in a zoo, or working for us. Choose your next action very carefully. The transmission ended, leaving the War Council in absolute silence. 6 months after the disaster at Sol, the Hegemony Council of Species convened in emergency session on the neutral world of Cathara Prime. Representatives from 47 member species filled the crystalline amphitheater, their various forms creating a kaleidoscope of alien anatomy and anxiety. At the center of the assembly, General Kriegstahl stood before a tribunal that would determine not just his fate, but the future of hegemony military doctrine, the adjudicator supreme, an ancient energy being whose species had mediated galactic conflicts for millennia, spoke with a voice that resonated across multiple dimensional frequencies. General Kriegstahl, you stand accused of catastrophic military failure resulting in the loss of 43 vessels, 30,000 personnel, and the complete exposure of hegemony tactical capabilities to a hostile force. Kriegstahl's mandibles clicked nervously as he reviewed the charges. In the months since the Sol disaster, the political implications had become clear. The humans hadn't just defeated a hegemony fleet. They demonstrated that the Empire's military superiority was an illusion. The defense recognizes the scope of the tactical defeat. His legal advocate, a crystalline entity from the Prism worlds, chimed with harmonic tones. However, we contend that the intelligence failures were systemic, not individual. Indeed, the investigation had revealed troubling gaps in hegemony intelligence capabilities. The humans had been monitoring galactic communications for decades, learning alien languages, studying military tactics, and preparing defensive strategies while appearing to struggle with basic spaceflight. "Present the human communications," the Adjudicator Supreme commanded. The central hologram activated, displaying intercepted human transmissions from the weeks following their victory. The content was disturbing. Human military analysts had dissected every aspect of the hegemony attack, identifying weaknesses in ship design, tactical doctrine, and command structure that had taken the aliens centuries to develop. "Note the systematic nature of their analysis," observed Council Member Thesiketh, a evolved cephalopod whose species specialized in strategic planning. "They didn't simply defeat us, they understood us. Their post-battle reports demonstrate comprehensive knowledge of our capabilities, logistics, and political structure." The hologram shifted to show footage from the captured vessels. Human engineers were working with alien crew members, not as captors and prisoners, but as collaborative researchers. The aliens were teaching humans about hegemony technology, while the humans shared their own innovations. "Most disturbing," continued Thesiketh, "is their apparent ability to integrate our personnel into their military structure. Several of our captured officers have requested asylum and are actively assisting human military development." General Krikstal felt his credibility dissolving. "The humans used some kind of psychological manipulation." "No," interrupted a new voice. The assembly turned to see Admiral Thisara, the survivor of the Crimson Fang battle group, approaching the speaking platform. "Permission to address the tribunal." The Adjudicator Supreme's energy form pulsed with acknowledgement. "Granted. Present. Your testimony." Thisara's chromatic skin displayed patterns of resigned honesty. "I commanded the fleet that engaged the humans. I survived by the simple expedient of being far enough from the primary combat zone to retreat when the situation became untenable." She paused, her tentacles curling with remembered embarrassment. "The humans didn't use psychological manipulation. They used competence." The assembly erupted in various forms of alien agitation: chittering, harmonic resonance, electromagnetic interference, and chemical releases that required immediate atmospheric filtration. "Explain," the Adjudicator Supreme demanded. "During the engagement, I monitored communications from our boarded vessels. The humans weren't just superior warriors, they were superior teachers. Within hours of capturing our personnel, they were training them in human tactical concepts. Our soldiers were learning faster and fighting more effectively under human instruction than they ever had under our command." She manipulated the display to show recordings from the captured ships. "Watch this footage from the Iron Talon. A human. Sergeant is teaching a squad of our best warriors how to properly breach a fortified position. Note how quickly they adapt to human methods." The footage was undeniable. Hegemony soldiers, trained in advanced warfare techniques, were learning basic human tactics and immediately becoming more effective combatants. "The humans treat warfare as a science," Thisara continued. "Every engagement is analyzed, every mistake corrected, every success replicated and improved. We treat it as a matter of technological superiority and political dominance." Council Member Vexithara, representing the militant draconian supremacy, rose with obvious anger. "You're suggesting that our entire military philosophy is flawed?" "I'm suggesting that our military philosophy is extinct," Thisara replied flatly. "The humans have proven that adaptive tactics trump superior firepower, that intelligence trumps arrogance, and that cooperation trumps domination." The Adjudicator Supreme's energy form shifted to deeper frequencies, indicating serious consideration. "What are your recommendations?" Thisara's skin patterns shifted to resigned determination. "Immediate cessation of all hostile actions against human space. Formal diplomatic contact to establish non-aggression parameters, and complete restructuring of hegemony military doctrine based on human tactical principles." the assembly exploded into chaos. Representatives demanded everything from immediate military retaliation to complete surrender. But through the cacophony, General Kriegstall found himself staring at the human communication logs, finally understanding the magnitude of his species. Miscalculation. The humans hadn't just defeated them militarily, they'd made it look easy. 2 years after first contact with humanity, the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The Hegemony Council chambers on Velthar Prime now hosted an unprecedented gathering, the first joint military exercise between human forces and former hegemony species. Admiral Octavia Reyes stood beside General Kriegstall, both watching as integrated mixed-species units conducted tactical simulations that would have been impossible under the old paradigm. "Target acquired," reported Lieutenant Kesavara, a four-armed hegemony officer now serving as a human-trained squad leader. Her unit, consisting of humans, reformed hegemony soldiers, and several species that had joined the growing alliance, moved through the simulation with fluid coordination. Kriegstall's mandibles clicked in what had become a familiar expression of amazement. 6 months ago, that squad would have required extensive coordination protocols and multiple command layers. Now they function as a single organism. Admiral Reyes nodded, her attention focused on the tactical displays. Human military doctrine is built on trust and adaptability. When everyone understands the mission parameters and has the training to execute independently, command hierarchy becomes less important than individual competence. The simulation concluded with the mixed species unit successfully capturing a fortified position that traditional hegemony tactics would have required massive casualties to take. The post-exercise analysis showed efficiency improvements of over 300% compared to pre-contact performance metrics. The Zephyrian remnant has requested inclusion in the next training cycle, reported Commander Vosek, who had become the hegemony's liaison for human military cooperation. Apparently, word of our tactical improvements has reached the outer rim. Reyes consulted her tactical pad, reviewing the integration protocols. We can accommodate them, but they'll need to understand that human military philosophy isn't just about combat techniques. It's about why we fight. This had become the central challenge of the new alliance. Human military effectiveness wasn't simply a matter of superior equipment or tactics. It was rooted in a worldview that treated survival as a collaborative effort rather than a zero-sum competition. Status report on the Frontier Defense Initiative? Kriegstall requested. The holographic display shifted to show the outer edge of known space, where the first joint human-alien exploration fleets were pushing into previously uncharted regions. The ships themselves were technological marvels. Hegemony engineering enhanced with human adaptability concepts, crewed by mixed-species teams that could respond to unexpected situations with unprecedented flexibility. The exploration vessel Unity's Edge encountered a previously unknown hostile species 3 days ago, Vosek reported. Initial contact was hostile. The aliens attacked without warning or communication attempts. Admiral Reyes leaned forward, with interest. How did our people respond? According to human protocols, Kriegstall replied, and there was pride in his voice. The human contingent immediately began analyzing enemy tactics, while the hegemony crew provided technical support and defensive fire. Within 2 hours, they had developed counter-tactics, established communication, and de-escalated the situation. And the outcome? The hostile species, who call themselves the Void Hunters, are now requesting formal diplomatic contact. Apparently, they were impressed by our tactical adaptability and our refusal to simply destroy them when we gained the advantage. This had become a pattern throughout the expanding alliance. Human military doctrine, with its emphasis on achieving objectives through minimum necessary force and maximum adaptive thinking, was proving more effective at establishing peaceful relations than traditional conquest-based approaches. The display shifted again, showing statistical analysis of the alliance's growth. In 2 years, what had begun as a reluctant cooperation between humans and their former hegemony enemies had expanded to include 17 different species across 8 star systems. The Galactic Council has formally requested a briefing on our integration methodologies, Commander Vosek reported. Apparently, several member species are experiencing significant improvements in military and civilian cooperation after implementing human organizational principles. Admiral Reyes smiled, remembering the War Council meeting where Earth had been, dismissed as a primitive target. What we're really teaching them is that competition and cooperation aren't opposites. The most successful strategies combine both. General Krixtal manipulated the display to show the current disposition of Alliance forces. Human-designed drop troopers working alongside hegemony heavy armor units, alien technical specialists enhancing human adaptive equipment, and mixed-species command structures that could respond to complex threats with unprecedented speed and effectiveness. There's something poetic about it, he mused. We came to conquer a primitive world and instead discovered that we were the primitives. Not primitives, Reyes corrected gently. Just incomplete. Every species develops differently based on their evolutionary pressures. You developed superior technology because your worlds required it. We developed superior adaptability because our world demanded it. She gestured toward the mixed species unit still conducting exercises. But together, we're developing something neither of us could have achieved alone. A military doctrine based on turning diversity into strength. The tactical display chimed with an incoming priority message. Admiral Reyes accepted the communication, and the image of a human captain aboard the exploration vessel Distant Shore appeared. Admiral, we've made contact with what appears to be a massive hostile force at the edge of the spiral arm. They're calling themselves the Devourers, and they seem to specialize in consuming entire civilizations. The War Council, now including species that had once been bitter enemies, immediately shifted into coordinated response mode. Human analytical thinking combined with alien technical expertise and collaborative tactical planning. Estimated threat level? General Krixtal asked. Significant. They've already consumed 3 star systems that we know of, and they're heading toward populated space. Admiral Reyes looked around the council chamber at the assembled representatives of dozens of species, all united by the shared discovery that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. Then it's time to show them what happens when an entire galaxy learns to fight together, she declared. For the first time in galactic history, the response to an existential threat wouldn't be desperate resistance by individual species fighting alone. It would be coordinated defense by an alliance that had learned the most important lesson humanity had to teach, that the best way to survive is to make sure everyone survives together. The War Council had indeed laughed until the first human drop trooper hit their planet. But what they learned afterward changed everything.